I appreciate you guys making the time. Again, the content, it's going to be pretty good. I love this webinar. We do it every year talking about just the wins that we had at Acquire, getting to help founders every single day. It's super rewarding. And as I'm going through this, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I'll do my best to answer those. And again, hopefully you have some good takeaways and we can help you potentially get acquired. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if you can, just let me know you can see my screen okay. Sweet. All right. So this webinar, it's all about Acquire's 2025 wins. And I'm going to just be going over what we saw from founders, what worked, what didn't work, and hopefully give you all some actionable tips, whether you're just exploring how the acquisition process works or you're looking to potentially sell your business in 2026. My goal is to just give you something that could be actionable and useful based on the thousands of deals that we see here at Acquire.com. So for today's agenda, I'm going to be going over right at the top how Acquire helps founders win. So what makes us different? A lot of people think that we're just a marketplace where you just list your business and you're kind of on your own when you go to sell, but that couldn't be further from the truth. When you go through some of these life-changing complex transactions, it's incredibly useful to have someone in your corner. We have a full advisory team here at Acquire that helps founders all day long go through complex negotiations or helping prepare to list on the marketplace or anything in between. We are here at your beckoning call. And I'll share some stories of how we've done that in the past and just what you can expect. Then going over some of our biggest exits. So 2025, we saw a number of 7-figure deals. And we also saw some 8-figure deals as well. So I'll be going over what those looked like, how the deals got over the finish line, how the advisory team helped, and just lessons that we learned from those deals, because every deal is different. Every deal has something that you can learn from it. And what we do as a team is we take all of those learnings together at every founder that we work with. We've just seen so much through acquisitions that we're able to, again, make deals actually close. That's the most important piece. And then number 3, just 2025 marketplace lessons. We see thousands of submissions to the Acquire.com marketplace. We only approve about 15% of the deals onto our marketplace. There's a number of reasons why we wouldn't approve them. But we know what works and we know what doesn't work. And so I'll be going over some things that we've seen, such as importance of metrics, preparation, positioning, stuff like that. And then we've been working on a ton of new stuff at Acquire, stuff I'm really excited about. So later in the webinar, I'll be talking about a new product that we built to help founders really understand their metrics and the valuation of their business. So I'll talk about that. And then Q&A at the end as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them. I'll be looking through the chat as I go through this. But again, I want to make this interactive. So if anything pops up, just let me know. But for those that aren't familiar with Acquire.com, we are the largest startup acquisition marketplace in the world. We've been in business for about 4 years, which is pretty crazy. It feels like just yesterday I started this business, but it's already been 4 years. Wow. We've served over 100 different countries. Today on the marketplace, we have over 2,000 live listings with a total combined revenue over $1 billion. So lots of activity on the marketplace, both the buy side and the sell side. We've helped over 2,000 founders get acquired. We've done over $500 million in closed transactions. And then we have over 500,000 registered buyers on the platform. So lots of activity. Again, we see lots of stuff. And my goal is always to help founders just understand this process, because acquisitions can always feel kind of confusing and opaque. And given that we see so much, just helping you understand that is my goal. And at Acquire.com, we are building the world's most founder-friendly startup acquisition marketplace. I've been a founder myself. I know what it's like to go through the acquisition process. I know what it's like to not know what happens next, or what should you do to make sure that you really maximize this acquisition opportunity. So everything we do at Acquire is to help founders. And for those that don't know me, my name is Andrew Gazdecki. I've helped thousands of founders get acquired through Acquire.com. Before Acquire.com, I actually started 3 different startups. One of them I bootstrapped to about 10 million in recurring revenue. It was acquired by a private equity firm. And then I had another startup after that was acquired by a strategic buyer. It was a cryptocurrency exchange. It wasn't nearly as successful as the first business, but going through both those businesses, learned a lot. And my goal is just to help founders succeed. And my promise is I'll help you get acquired the right way with preparation, leverage, and real buyer demand. Okay, now jumping into the reason why all of you are here. So I'm going to be going over how Acquire helps founders win. And I think it's important to know that at Acquire, we're not successful unless the founders that we work with are successful. So everything that we do is from the perspective of how do we make founders successful? How do we help them achieve their goals? And how do we help them get acquired? Because that's what we do. So at Acquire.com, we have a full service first marketplace built for founders. We have a full dedicated acquisition success team. And what that means is anytime that you go through an acquisition with us, we're there every single step of the way. We give out our cell phone number, you have our email address, you can schedule meetings with us whenever you need us. But everything from listing to due diligence to an asset purchase agreement to escrow and closing, we are there to assist. Because again, what we stand for as a company is we want entrepreneurs to successfully get acquired. And there's so many pitfalls during that process, and we've seen pretty much everything. So when we're able to step in and assist or just provide some guidance to help, that's extremely rewarding for us. And again, we like to make entrepreneurs successful, and everything we can do to provide just that hands-on assistance and support to close deals is what we love to do. So we have full support in over 100 different countries, including Latin America. We also have Spanish speakers on our team as well. I'll be going over a pretty cool story of a pretty large acquisition that we closed with founders based in Spain. It was fully in Spanish. So that's a big differentiator for acquirers. We're not just a marketplace, list your business, never hear from us. We like to be hands-on. We like to support founders. We like to coach founders. We like to educate you on the acquisition process to really help you maximize your acquisition, because it's a truly life-changing event and you only really get to go through it a couple of times. So the more that you can put support in your corner, the better. And in terms of our availability and our service level agreements, it's pretty much 24/7. I'm sure a lot of founders on this can relate, but we were working over the holiday break. We were working on Christmas. We were working on New Year's Eve. I was emailing founders on New Year's Day. 24/7 live support via chat and email, phone support available for active deals. Again, I think the takeaway here is we're there 24/7. We do whatever it takes to make sure the founders we work with are successful. Because again, if we're successful, then the founders that we work with are going to be more successful. And that's really just the lens that we use for everything that we do at Acquire.com. And then beyond the platform, you'll notice at Acquire, we create a ton of different content. So we have a full YouTube channel. We have webinar replays, success stories. We have a podcast where I interview other founders that have sold with us. And really the purpose of all this content is to educate you as a founder on how does Acquire.com work? How are other founders successful using them? What were the deals like? Was it confusing? What are the lessons? Because I think there's just so many stories from acquisitions that are just never shared. Maybe you'll read a headline, you'll read XYZ company was acquired, but the process and the step-by-step, how did you get there yourself? That's really our goal with our content, is to help you understand the process, feel more prepared, feel more educated, feel more confident when you do look to sell your business, which ultimately will help you potentially sell the business for more or for better terms. So check out our YouTube channel, tons of great content there. We also have on our blog, we have webinar recaps, success stories, help and advice, news. We've pretty much written the book on acquisition. So whether you just have a few hours of time or you have a few days, go through our content. We have a ton of great stuff, and you'll definitely learn something. We've also, so on the left-hand side, there's a cool course that a lot of people don't know about. It's called Acquire Academy. It was started by an individual named Ryan Culp. It used to be called Micro Acquisitions. And he would actually sell the course for, I think it was $500. And when I started the company, I actually purchased the course. This was like 5 years ago. And it was so good that we decided to acquire the course entirely ourselves. And it's completely free now. It goes over a thesis, or how to make a thesis, how to source deals, how to negotiate and go through due diligence, financials and closing, relaunching and scale, and then how to think about an exit strategy. This is a great course for really anyone, regardless of if you're a buyer or a seller. Ryan's gone through, I believe, 20 acquisitions at this point. We recently helped him sell another pretty sizable business just last week, actually. So check that out. It's a great piece of content, entirely free. It used to be about $500. And again, our goal at Acquire is to educate as many founders as we possibly can to help you be more confident when you go to sell your business. We also have things like a help desk that goes over all the tools that we have on the platform, the letter of intent builder, the asset purchase agreement builder, how everything flows in escrow, common terms that we see within our agreements. Check out the help desk if you haven't already. And then in the bottom right, we also now have a cool AI advisor. This is a tool that's been trained on all of our content, so all of our YouTube videos, all of our podcasts, all of our help desk articles. And essentially what it is, it's a AI advisor where sometimes when I'm actively supporting a deal, I'll take a question, post it in there, see what it says back to me. And it's shockingly good. It'll give you some good answers. And the best part about it, it's there 24/7. So anytime you have a question, hey, this buyer sent me this, or what is a letter of intent? Is this a good offer? How should I think about valuing my startup? What documents am I missing? What's a good negotiation tactic? What's a good counter? Stuff like that. It gives you 24/7 access to like a M&A advisor in your hand. So check that out as well. So now I'm going to move into the best, or I should say not the best, but the biggest exits that we had in 2025. So every single day at Acquire, we're closing about 2 to 3 different acquisitions, and those are going to range in size. We're going to see some on the really small side. We're going to see some in called the 6-figure range. And then we also see some in the 7 and even the 8-figure range. And that's really what I'm focusing on here is the larger exits in the 7-figure life-changing category. So right at the top, we had a marketing agency sell for about $1.5 million. This was an interesting acquisition because this one had a lot of competition. I think this is the biggest lesson that I would like everyone to take away from this one is when you're able to have a large number of buyers submit offers, that allows you to negotiate better price, better terms, close with all cash. You could negotiate a higher final sale price where maybe all the offers came in at 1 million and you want to get to 1.5. Having leverage by having more than one formal offer from buyers is the way to go. And we saw that in this scenario where this marketing agency had a number of different offers. What was really important to this founder was closing with all cash. They didn't want to earn out. They didn't want seller financing. And because they had the leverage from other buyer offers, they were able to go to every buyer and say they want all cash offer. And that's what they ultimately closed with. Below that, we have a dev agency that sold for $3.8 million. This one was fun to work on. So this one actually had a SBA loan fall through with one buyer. And that happens as part of the process. It can be kind of disheartening when you're going through an acquisition and things fall apart and you've spent all this time with one buyer. And now you have to start over essentially. And this is where having an advisory team behind you can really help because we were able to essentially pick up the founder, encourage him to keep going. We really relisted him, went back to previous buyers, figured out a deal structure that worked. And that ended up closing in for $3.8 million. That changed the founder's life. And that was a great outcome. And then below that, we have a $2.9 million agency. I remember this one because we worked on it quite a bit. And the main driver of this one was they had so many different customer acquisition channels. They had a very predictable and repeatable strategy for getting new customers. And because of this, they were also able to source multiple offers from multiple buyers. And the biggest takeaway on this acquisition, and this could really apply to any acquisition, is the stronger your customer acquisition funnel, the better. Meaning, if you're driving a lot of customers through just one channel or through word of mouth or through founder referrals, things that aren't necessarily as repeatable or predictable, or it's one dimensional, that is typically going to be discounted in your valuation. So if you're able to diversify how you get your customers, you will be rewarded, and that'll be reflected in your final valuation. Below that, we have a marketing/social media agency for $1.2 million. The lesson here, again, is similar to the last one, where they had a very repeatable playbook. And so this allows buyers to essentially underwrite the business with confidence, knowing that when they acquire the business in 12 months from now, they can have a good idea of how the business is going to perform. And this can be huge or a requirement for essentially most buyers, because when you acquire a business, you need to calculate the return on your investment and how you're going to get the capital back that you're using to acquire the business. And so when you can show a way for buyers to essentially map out how customers come in the business, the price they pay, the cost it takes to acquire that customer, and how predictable that playbook is. It can be the marketing playbook, but it can also be the sales playbook where you show how you close those customers. That's going to really be interesting to a lot of different buyers, and that's what we saw in this scenario. Now, moving over to some of our SaaS acquisitions. Again, I want to highlight at Acquire, we assist with all types of acquisitions. So the advisory team was helping with all of these acquisitions. I'm also personally involved in a number of acquisitions, especially as we start moving into the 7 and 8 figure transactions. So some good stories on these ones. The one at the top was a $7 million data as a service company. This was a really interesting acquisition, probably the most interesting acquisition I've ever worked on. And the reason for that was the buyer was in Japan, and English was not their first language. It was a strategic company in Japan, had probably more people working on it than I've ever seen on a single deal. Full team from KPMG for due diligence, legal. And then someone from our team at Acquire.com actually flew to Tokyo for the closing of this acquisition. The lesson for me here was clear positioning, attract strategic buyers. There was just a great fit between this US-based company and this other startup based in Japan. The sellers also benefited from QSBS, which is a tax exemption. So it was a completely life-changing transaction, extremely rewarding to work on. The one below that is a $10 million SaaS. So this is one of the largest transactions that we've done, at least in 2025. This is the one based in Spain, and the founders were both Spanish speakers. We were able to help them through a ton of different negotiations and complicated terms that the buyer was throwing at them. It was acquired by a really large and notable private equity firm. And what happened on this one was initially when they launched, they were pricing too high. They had a very, very high asking price. And that can sometimes be one of the number one reasons I see deals not getting acquired for is they price themselves essentially out of the market. That scares away a lot of buyers. And sometimes you take in that feedback and you adjust the acquisition opportunity based on what you're hearing from buyers. So in this scenario, that's what we did. We got the feedback. We paused the listing. We relaunched the business on Acquire.com, fielded multiple offers with that feedback, was able to have the business successfully acquired. The one below that was an $8 million SaaS. The lesson on this one was definitely multiple offers, created real leverage. I remember the founder was very specific about wanting to close quickly. He had a concern of due diligence dragging out, the deal closing, which is a very valid concern. I think that can be a huge step back. And so the founder was willing to take a discount on price to avoid that. And the lesson here is multiple offers should be your goal because that gives you the ability to have optionality where if you want to close with a buyer that is known for fast due diligence, you can't. If you want an offer that's all cash, you have multiple offers, so you can choose which one makes the most sense. It gives you optionality. So tons of great stories. We have many more like this. So I'm just highlighting some of the biggest ones that we had in 2025. But again, we closed over $100 million in total deal volume in 2025. It was a great year. I expect that to continue based on everything that we've been seeing in the market, buyer interest, stuff like that. But winning exits, here's some shared traits across these wins. Right at the top, we have clear customer acquisition strategies. This is a big one where when buyers are able to predictably forecast where the business is going to be in 12 months from now, that changes everything. So having a clear strategy for how you acquire customers, that is a documented strategy, and you're able to essentially paint a clear picture for the buyers that you're working with that the momentum that you've had up to this point will continue on in the future, makes the deal much easier for buyers to underwrite, and you're able to field multiple offers and close. And then number 2 is going to be predictable pipelines. Buyers could underwrite. I just touched on that, but again, the predictability piece in acquisitions is so massive. So having buyers be able to forecast with some level of certainty is what really gets a lot of buyers interested and what leads to multiple offer scenarios. Strong positioning of recent performance. You always want to sell the business when you're coming off a strong quarter or a strong year, as opposed to when the business is slowing down or it's not growing at all. So strong positioning in terms of recent performance. All the businesses that we worked with on these larger acquisitions, they were coming off good recent quarters, good months. They continued to grow during the due diligence process. And this really gets buyers excited. It's not a story of a turnaround. It's a story of this growth will continue and you're acquiring the asset today. So you don't have to pay more for it in the future. So really thinking about when you sell can be just as important as anything. So if you're thinking about an exit, that's something that, we're happy to chat with you about. But one consistent theme is really looking to sell as growth is still continuing rather than when it's on the decline. And then all these founders leverage their team, their resources, and the Acquire.com M&A team to close. A lot of these deals had scenarios where the deal almost died, where there was a conflict between the buyer and the seller, there was a miscommunication, maybe one side wanted to give up, maybe there's some confusing terms, and that's really where the Acquire.com team can come in and assist to keep the deal going and ultimately successfully close the transaction. Okay, moving on to 2025 lessons from our marketplace. Acquire.com marketplace insights. So we definitely see hundreds of deals come to the marketplace, thousands, I should say. We understand how buyers are underwriting risk today, where sellers succeed and where they get stuck. And that's really what I'm going to try to go over here is just the main things that stood out to us in 2025 and what you can do to prepare or be successful when you're working with Acquire.com. So lesson number one is going to be metrics matter more than ever. This couldn't be more true. This was true in the past, and it's definitely true today. Buyers anchor on true profitability and defensible metrics. Misaligned metrics slow deals and reduce buyer trust. We see this one quite a bit. The second point, where maybe the numbers are kind of exaggerated or, making things look better than they are, specifically on SDE, seller discretionary earnings. The key here is to know your metric clearly and present them to buyers in a way that is accurate to build trust. Because if you don't, it's eventually going to be learned about from the buyer. It's going to make the deal blow up. It's not going to work to your favor. So don't ever show metrics that aren't true or numbers that aren't real. It's only going to come bite you in later as the acquisition goes on. But another big one is the SDE, heavy stories without net profit. What this means is when you recast your financials, you're able to restate certain expenses as profit. When these stories are heavily lenient on SDE, when there's no net profit, that tends to scare buyers away. So you really want to focus on your metrics, what they are today, and improve them before you go to market, rather than go to market, try to make your numbers look better. That almost never works. And we also work with founders on these things. So if you're not sure what you should add back in your financials, or you're not sure how to properly show your financials to buyers, we can assist with that. But rule of thumb, prepare your metrics and numbers before you go into an acquisition process, rather than improve them as fast as you can when you're in the process. Lesson 2, preparation plus communication. Clean data builds confidence. Clear communication builds buyer trust. I can't overstate this one more, where the more clear you're able to show your data to buyers, such as a very clear P&L broken out by month with revenue and expenses, really shows where customers are coming from, how much you're paying to acquire a customer, and what the value of that customer is over time, really gives buyers insight into the health of your business. We also have tools that help you with this, which I'll talk about in a bit. But then also communicating to buyers what you want out of an acquisition. A lot of founders that we work with haven't really thought through this question, aside from I want to sell my business, but what does that specifically look like? Meaning, are you willing to stay on the business? Are you interested in offering a transition to a new buyer? Why are you looking to sell the business? Have you thought through that question? Because every buyer asks. Are you willing to negotiate on your terms or be flexible? Is the final sale price the most important to you, or are you most interested in an all cash at close offer? And being able to communicate that to buyers. For example, once you have clear clean data put together. You have all the necessary information a buyer will need. You want to communicate that you're selling the business for XYZ reason. You're open to creative deal structures. And what that means is you're open to being flexible and working with a buyer to create a win-win transaction. And your goal is to shepherd the business over to a new owner who can give the business more love. That clear communication, it builds buyers' trust. It gives them an idea of what kind of offer you're looking for. And it also signals that you're willing to work with them. These are also things that we work with founders on directly one-on-one with the Acquire.com advisory team. But just think through how can you prepare and how can you communicate what you want when you work with buyers. Lesson 3 is going to be active deal management. So listings require engagement, proactive outreach, and updates unlock results. When you go to sell your business, it's important to remember that you're in an active sale process. What that means is you need to reach out to buyers. You need to follow up with buyers, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times. A lot of founders that we work with, have a question along the lines of, do you think I'm bugging buyers? Do you think I'm annoying them? And the answer is no. It's just like in sales. Every time you follow up with a buyer is a potential to schedule a meeting, to be able to demo the product that you've built, to really speak with them about the acquisition that you're looking to achieve. The worst they can say is no. So if they've expressed interest as a buyer and you're consistently sharing new information, you're sharing updates, you're sharing maybe growth that's recently happened or new press articles or a new video or podcast that was recorded, more information about your business, more information for them to get excited, more reasons for them to want to take a call with you, the better. Because again, you are selling your business and there's thousands of other businesses, millions of other businesses on the marketplace today. Maybe not millions, but there's a lot of competition to sell a business today. And so the more you can do to stand out and give buyers more reason to be excited about potentially acquiring your business, the better. So responding to questions quickly, again, following up, adding new information as it becomes available, pointing out awesome parts about your business or awesome pieces of information you've already put together, such as an updated data room or an introductory video. We have a number of things, including a cadence that we recommend for founders. I won't go into detail on that. But think through just active deal management. Have the mindset that you're going to sell the business rather than a passive mindset where you're just going to list the business, only speak to a buyer when he essentially hands you cash. It typically doesn't work like that. And if it did, you would see a higher final sale price if you were actively engaging with every buyer that reaches out. Okay, what's new at Acquire in 2026? We're always working on a ton of great stuff. This one I'm particularly excited about. Main reason is it really solves a big pain point for founders. I mean, you don't know what your metrics are. You're unsure of what your startup is potentially worth, and you're not really sure what to focus on next to grow your business. So we released a new product. It's called Metricable. It's essentially a SaaS metrics platform that helps you understand and get actionable insights to grow your business. So if you create an account on Metricable.com, you can connect your Stripe account and immediately be able to see lifetime value, annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, all the metrics that are super important when you go to sell your business. And we take all that data and we compile it based on the thousands of exits that we see at Acquire, and we give you a baseline valuation expectation. So you can see what your business is worth and then also track your metrics as you grow. And then over time, what I'd love for this tool to become is essentially almost like a co-founder where we help you forecast different growth scenarios. For example, you reduce churn by 5%. How is that going to affect your valuation? Or you grew annual recurring revenue by 20% last month. If that continues into the year, what could your business potentially be worth? So lots of cool stuff in the work. It also integrates directly into Acquire.com. So I talk a lot about showing metrics cleanly and clearly, and this is the perfect way to do this. When you create a listing on Acquire.com, you can simply connect Metricable, connect through Stripe, and then you show a beautiful dashboard of your metrics to every buyer that signs an NDA to learn more about your business. So check it out. It's entirely free. It's always going to be free, at least for now. And I hope you enjoy it. Again, it's just a great way to learn about your startup's metrics, give you a free valuation, and then actionable tips to grow your business further and grow your valuation. So how Acquire helps founders win. So inside the platform, we have the deepest, most active pool of buyers. We do a lot of vetting on the buy side where we're making sure that every buyer verifies their ID, has a proper LinkedIn account. There's no reported complaints against this individual. And because of the deep active buyer pool, we help founders get competitive offers, which allows you to create leverage. And this also means less time wasted on bad fit buyers. And then outside the platform, so really inside the platform, our main goal is to get you as many offers as we possibly can by really sourcing the most amount of buyers that we possibly can to market your acquisition to. And then outside the platform, we have a full success team beyond just the software. We provide education, coaching, and guidance, everything that you're going to need to successfully get acquired. And that's because we have a commitment to helping founders exit. That's what we love to do. We love to see founders win and succeed. And we're not successful if the founders that we work with aren't successful. So we bring the platform together with the M&A advisory team support that we have at Acquire. And that's really what helps founders win. And Acquire, we're trusted by thousands of founders all across the world. If you'd like to read more about just some of the experiences people have had at acquire.com, feel free to go to Trustpilot. We have a number of different reviews in the hundreds. We're always, every single day, closing acquisitions. It's what we love to do. We've seen pretty much everything you could possibly see. And it's one of the most rewarding jobs we could possibly have. We love this job. We love seeing founders win. So wrapping things up, if you're looking to sell or buy in 2026, if you're a founder, you can create a listing that builds trust and removes obstacles. If you're a buyer, you can evaluate opportunities faster with clear, structured data. And if you're both of these, you can close deals confidently with credibility on both sides. Definitely check out acquire.com if you haven't already. And we're here to help. Whether you're on the buy side or sell side is what we love to do. We love to help founders win. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to take some questions if anybody has any questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll go through a couple right now. How was that? Did everybody enjoy that? Okay, first question. Does the platform focus on exits alone, or can equity deals be structured on Acquire? Unfortunately, only acquisitions. We don't do any sort of investment. Next question. How active is your activity outside of the US? Pretty active. I would say about 50% of the acquisitions we do are in the United States, and then the other 50% are based outside of the United States. So Europe, lots of South America. Those are going to be the two biggest after the US, but I'd say about 50% of our total activity is outside the United States. Okay, next question. Should I optimize for speed or for the highest price? That's a great question. I think it's going to come down to your personal goals as a founder. I have seen a lot of scenarios where founders just want to close quickly. They don't, in any scenario, want to have due diligence drag on more than needs to be. And in that case, it might be speed. And if that's the case, there's going to be certain buyers that are going to advertise speed as their competitive advantage. And so working with them could be the way to go. And then there could be other buyers at, say, a higher price, but due diligence is going to be more cumbersome. Maybe chances of closing is a tad lower. And so you'd want to optimize for the highest price. I would optimize for both. I think there's definitely a large number of buyers that can close quickly and will pay top dollar for your business. But it's going to really come down to creating leverage and making sure the goal is to secure as many offers as you can during the acquisition process. Okay, next question. How early is too early to start preparing for an exit? I don't think it's really ever too early. I think at a minimum, probably, 30, 60 days will give you enough time to properly prepare your financials and think through what's most important to you and what to expect from the acquisition process. But, you can prepare for an exit years in advance. I think being organized and having your house together is just good practice and should be something that all founders should at least begin thinking about at least a year out. Do international buyers actually close, or is that just noise? Yeah, 100% international buyers absolutely will close acquisitions for sure. Next question. How do I avoid ending up with just one serious buyer? This is a great question. The key is creating competition. So during your acquisition process, you want to really make sure that you don't do anything that will immediately scare buyers away. This can include pricing too high. This is probably the most common pitfall. You want to price within what buyers are expected to pay for a business like yours. So this is where using our advice based on what we're seeing in the market, what buyers are bidding on businesses at, starting with a realistic asking price, having patience through the process, preparing before you go live, meaning you understand that buyers need a certain level of documentation and information to even be able to make an offer. If you get those things right, where you price correctly, you prepare, and you use our assistance when selling your business, that is how you can get multiple offers. You get one serious buyer typically when you don't do all these things correctly. You overvalue the business. You don't properly prepare, and over time you'll just see about one serious buyer. And we like to do everything we can to ensure that you see more than one. All right, I'm gonna go with two more questions and then wrap it up here. Is there a minimum size / minimum revenue threshold to make sense for your platform? No. We've seen a number of pre-revenue businesses sell. The thing about pre-revenue businesses, though, is it's a very, very tough sell because they're hard to value, meaning with AI, it can be so easy to replicate different software products today. My best advice here is try and just get just a handful of customers if you can, because when you're able to show any form of product market fit and traction, your acquisition price will just be so much more meaningful. But we're more than happy to look at any type of business upwards with millions in revenue or all the way down to pre-revenue. Also very curious, what is the current state of acquisition of AI startups? We're definitely seeing a boom in acquisitions in general. I think this applies to all software companies. Acquisitions definitely increased in 2025 and are forecasted to continue increasing in 2026. So there is a strong appetite for acquisitions right now. A lot of buyers have the budget. They've been thinking through an acquisition target in 2026. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, it's a great time based on what I'm seeing. All right, everybody. I think that's all I got in me. I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for joining. We'll go ahead and have another webinar probably in another month here. So I hope to see you all there, and we'll definitely send out the recording. But again, thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate you all. And if we can help in any way, whether you're a buyer or seller, feel free to reach out. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.